The banner headline is that JP Morgan Chase is buying Bear Stearns.
The U.S. government has seized California's embattled
The seizure of First Republic Bank by federal regulators. JP Morgan Chase has been chosen to buy most of its assets. First Republic has been sinking for weeks ever since Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank failed back
in the cutthroat world of finance. There is one monster that stands out from the rest, a creature that feasts on the carcasses of its fallen competitors. That monster is JP Morgan Chase. When other banks stumble and fall, JP Morgan is there, ready to pounce. They say that in every crisis there is opportunity, and JP Morgan knows how to seize that opportunity. They are the hunter, the predator, the top of the food chain. They have a plan, a strategy for domination, and they execute it with precision. Their appetite for domination is insatiable. With each acquisition, they grow stronger, more dominant. But what does it mean for the rest of us? Some say it's a warning, a sign of an industry that has become too concentrated, too powerful. Others say it's simply the way of the world, survival of the fittest. One thing is for certain, JP Morgan Chase will continue to prowl the financial landscape, a monster that preys on its competitors, a force to be reckoned with. The world of banking is filled with riches, luxury, and power. But sometimes, this world can come crashing down, leaving behind a trail of destruction and chaos. In the past decade, we have seen the fall of some of the biggest banks in the world. Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, and Washington Mutual, to name a few. But what caused these giants to fall? The answer lies in one of the biggest financial crises in history. The housing bubble burst, and millions of people lost their homes. The banks, driven by greed for profit, had been giving out loans to people who couldn't afford to pay them back. This led to a chain reaction that brought the entire financial system to its knees. The U.S. Federal Reserve was supposed to regulate the banks and prevent them from taking on too much risk. But they slept on their job, and the banks were allowed to run wild. But in the midst of this crisis, one bank saw an opportunity. JP Morgan, one of the biggest banks in the world, knew that they could take advantage of the chaos and acquire some of these failing banks. In the world of finance, JP Morgan Chase is a predator, always on the hunt for its next meal. Their strategy of acquisition has seen them grow into the largest bank in the United States, with assets over $3.4 trillion. Two of the most significant acquisitions in JP Morgan Chase's history were Bear Stearns and Washington Mutual. Both banks were on the brink of collapse during the 2008 financial crisis, and JP Morgan Chase saw the opportunity to pounce. Yet again, in 2023 we have witnessed the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, Credit Suisse, and First Republic Bank. It is not a surprise that JP Morgan has continued with its expansion strategy by acquiring First Republic Bank in May 2023. After all, it looks like they are the only ones who can do this when the world financial systems are collapsing. But why would a predator like JP Morgan Chase be interested in acquiring collapsing banks? It's simple: to expand their business and acquire new assets. The bigger they get, the more powerful they become. And with each acquisition, JP Morgan Chase solidifies its position as a giant in the financial world. JP Morgan Chase's acquisition strategy can be likened to a pack of wolves, targeting the weak and vulnerable in the financial world. But like any good predator, JP Morgan Chase is not just after a quick meal. They have learned from the lessons of history, and they know that when other banks fail, they have the financial power and expertise to step in and rescue them. By strategically acquiring these failing banks, JP Morgan Chase is able to use its financial power to stabilize the financial system and prevent widespread panic and economic damage. And the strategy has paid off. JP Morgan Chase has become a trusted name in the world of banking, with millions of customers worldwide. But with power comes responsibility, and JP Morgan Chase has a critical role to play in the global financial system. Their acquisitions help keep the economy stable and prevent financial crises. And as the financial system remains unstable, JP Morgan Chase will continue to be a predator, always on the hunt for its next meal. But unlike wolves, JP Morgan Chase does not howl at the moon alone. They have a team of financial experts and a vast network of resources to help them make informed decisions and achieve their goals. And while their acquisition strategy may seem predatory, it's also a necessary evil in the world of finance. JP Morgan Chase knows that in order to survive and thrive, they must be constantly on the hunt. Just like the lion who hunts for its next meal to survive, JP Morgan Chase must hunt for its next acquisition to remain at the top of the financial food chain. So, whether you love them or hate them, one thing is clear: JP Morgan Chase's acquisition strategy is a force to be reckoned with in the world of finance. And as they continue to grow and expand their empire, they will remain a predator in the financial world for decades or even centuries to come. For over a century, JP Morgan Chase has been a powerhouse in the world of banking. With a reputation for aggressive acquisitions and smart investments, this financial giant has become one of the most powerful players in the industry. But what impact have these acquisitions had on the banking industry and the economy as a whole? And what are the potential risks and benefits of consolidating so much power within one institution? To find out the impact of these acquisitions, let's take a look at some other significant acquisitions by JP Morgan Chase in the recent decades. In 2004, the bank acquired Bank One, creating the largest bank in the United States. They came back in a big way in 2008 when JP Morgan acquired Bear Stearns and Washington Mutual, both of which had collapsed during the financial crisis. And in 2019, the bank acquired InstaMed, a healthcare payments provider, for reportedly over $500 million. But this time, it was a strategic move. The acquisition was based on JP Morgan's interest in expanding their payment technology services. One of the most significant impacts of these acquisitions has been the consolidation of power within the banking industry. With each acquisition, JP Morgan Chase has grown stronger, more influential, and more dominant. This consolidation of power has led to increased competition in the industry. As smaller banks struggle to compete with JP Morgan Chase's deep pockets and vast resources, they may be forced out of business. This could have significant implications for the economy as a whole, as a smaller number of banks means less competition and potentially higher fees for consumers. On the other hand, JP Morgan Chase's acquisitions have also led to some benefits. The bank's investments in technology have allowed it to offer innovative services like mobile banking, which have made banking more convenient and accessible for millions of customers. And as JP Morgan Chase continues to grow and innovate, it may be able to create new opportunities and drive economic growth. But ultimately, the question of whether JP Morgan Chase's acquisitions are good for the economy and society as a whole is a complex one. As this financial giant continues to dominate the banking industry, it's up to us as consumers, regulators, and citizens to carefully consider the risks and benefits of such consolidation of power. Only time will tell what the future holds for JP Morgan Chase and the economy as a whole. The main lesson we can pick from this thriller is that the world of finance can be a treacherous place. For smaller banks and financial institutions, it can be an all-out war. But sometimes, even the biggest players can get caught in the crosshairs. Bank One, Bear Stearns, InstaMed, and First Republic knows this all too well. JP Morgan is a powerhouse in the financial world, and they don't plan on slowing down anytime soon. As smaller banks crumble, they'll be there to pick up the pieces. Some may see it as ruthless, but in the world of finance, it's just business. JP Morgan is playing to win, and they're not afraid to do what it takes to stay on top. So what's next for JP Morgan? Only time will tell.